Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our third Keeping It Real OC event. These are educational forums where we're sharing more information about what it really takes to live and be successful for your family here in Orange County. Our first one, some of you probably remember, was about the real cost measure, some research that United Ways of California have done, what it really take to live here. And I think we learned a lot together on that particular session. 1 out of 3 families in Orange County are struggling, and that was pre-pandemic, and that is even more concerning as we're emerging from this period of time we've all been going through together. Another fact that we learned is that what does it really take? We learned about the poverty level being set years and years ago in the 60s based on the cost of food. And there's so much more that goes into that, childcare and healthcare and so many other factors. In fact, updated research by our public policy folks have shown that it really takes a family of 4 here in Orange County about $101,000 to support their basic needs. And that's with a child that's preschool and a child in school. Again, household incomes, but things that we can all be aware of and focus on because we know we want everyone here in Orange County to be successful together. So again, these platforms are to build public awareness, much like we did in the last session we had, which was on the social determinants of health. And obviously health and wealth are very, very tied together. If you're struggling to know if you're going to have a roof over your head, it's hard to focus on your health and hard to go out and focus on getting that better job when you're stressed all the time. So again, everything's interconnected. We are here to bring more education and also programming that really makes a difference. So I'm so excited about the panel, and you're going to hear more about that in a minute. But we really want to focus on today is, with everything that's gone on, how do people get back to work? How do we really help create an environment for especially those that are most vulnerable, are really struggling working families? How do we get them in a position where they are ready to take on a job that's going to help them earn that living wage that we need here in Orange County? What are the secrets, the tricks, the new ways that our companies here in Orange County are looking for talent? What new skills are needed in the workforce of the future? And what training, what resources, what tools do we need to help them? And are there policy changes that need to be made along the way? Lots to cover. And I think about stories, and I think about one that I've learned about our Upskill OC program that's been helping people get jobs. In many cases, these are folks that have been in a rapid rehousing situation. They've really been struggling, but we've connected them through partners and technology jobs and healthcare jobs and jobs of the future. And one of those people that we helped was Mary. Mary had been in HR for a dozen years. She thought she was doing great, and then the pandemic hit and her company closed. Mary struggled, a lot of people did, but she applied for 24 jobs, and still through all of this, she never had an offer. She went through her savings and really nervous, lost her self-confidence. She connected with United Ways, Upskill OC. She practiced interviewing, she got her resume updated, developed a new sense of confidence. And I'm happy to report that Mary, through all the support she got from us and the one-stop center that is so amazing here in Orange County, she's now earning 90-some thousand plus bonus, plus benefits, and feeling on a way to building that stability for her family. So there are success stories, and we're going to learn more as we go through this together. I think it's all about adapting as we move forward. And I think about us as an employer, United Way. We employ people, obviously, right here in Orange County. And it's been hard to find talent. Then it's not as many people applying for jobs. And why is that? And how do we become more creative and helping people understand some of the significant roles that can be filled to help people in Orange County? So we're all in this together. But again, I'm so excited to be able to introduce the panel. But first, I'm more than excited to introduce this next gentleman, Todd Zegers. Todd is a vice president at Ingram Micro. Many of you know Ingram Micro, amazing organization headquartered here in Orange County. And Todd is new to our board of directors. And most excitedly, that's very exciting in its own right, but He's also our new chair of United for Financial Security. And I'm so excited. So Todd, do you want to share a few words and why you're so passionate about the work we're doing together?
Yeah, absolutely, Sue. And thank you so much for the intro and obviously including me and you and your team's mission. I'm really grateful to be a part of an organization with such amazing people and leaderships who are very passionate about their cause, right? I've been involved with a lot of different charities and you don't always find the same passion. So it's pretty cool. Just a quick history on me. I moved out here to Orange County from Phoenix, Arizona back in December of 2019. It was a very interesting year given we just got to settle in with the pandemic. So I guess the good news about being quarantined, we got to actually unpack all the boxes that we moved out here. But shortly after moving here, I got introduced to both Sue and Brenielle, I guess mid to early last year, and I was just floored at the passion and their drive to do some amazing things. So they asked me to join the United for Financial Security chapter as just kind of part of the leadership council. It's kind of my first foray into the partnership. And as Sue mentioned, I was recently elected to the board and asked to chair the United for Financial Security efforts. So obviously I'm honored and flattered to take on the initiative, but I also realize it's going to be a lot of work, getting that up and going and making some meaningful difference. So looking forward to getting into some key initiatives in the coming year and helping out some Orange County families. It's amazing to me. I was shared some statistics earlier about, the fact that over 65% of single mothers in our county alone live below that real cost measure. And almost 100% of parents, about 98% of those parents of families actually live below the real cost measure, right? And these are people that are working, to Sue's point earlier. But if you think about some of the additional factors on there, right? Think about how hard it is to get childcare these days, the availability of it's going down, the cost of it's going up, because obviously between inflation and the cost of labor is going up, right? It makes it really hard. So you start having to wonder, do the parents stay home and just go ahead and take care of their kids at home because of the cost of the school versus what they're actually going to make and take home at work? Does it even make sense to do that? So there's a lot of other trends that are going in the wrong way. And I think, what I really want to try to do and focus on within the financial security chapter is how do we focus on not just raising funds to give assistance and give services to those who are in need, but really try to drive meaningful and lasting change through education, right? Mentorship, how to manage and balance your budget, how to get access to meaningful employment, not just a job that helps you keep the lights on and pay the bills living in your apartment. How do you get a career and take that step forward to where whatever you're doing today is going to build for longer term, equity and wealth and stuff like that. So you're not having to constantly just kind of work for that weekly paycheck to make sure you can get by, right? I was reading something about, people have to work 80 to 120 hours, both parents, just to afford to manage a suitable apartment for themselves. So there's so much opportunity out here. Just how do we help these folks get exposed to that and really make a change in their life? So that's really kind of, what I'll be focusing on with the team around the financial security aspect. And then kind of moving on, one of the passions I have in my life is really working on the digital divide. If you think about what the pandemic has done to that, right, the cost of internet has gone up, availability of devices has gone way down, because before the pandemic hit, I'm in the technology supply chain sector, there was already a shortage of processor chips and other components to build devices to help people. Then you layer the pandemic on top of that, which then caused supply chain issues to even further it out. You got cars that can't get made because of the chips that are in all these computers in the cars now, right? It's really becoming kind of the perfect storm of a challenge. And I work for a company called Ingram Micro, based here, as Sue mentioned. We're the largest technology distributor in the world. I run what's called a reverse logistics and ITAG group, which is basically going to large corporations or retailers and stuff like that, or OEMs, manufacturers, and we take back and refurbish and repurpose used devices. So if you think of these families who just need to get on the internet or just need to create an Excel spreadsheet to make them balance a budget, right? They don't need sophisticated high-end devices. So it really hit me that we can make a big impact by either asking our customers to donate some of that stuff that they're getting rid of. We can clean it up, refurbish it, and donate it back to these organizations, or we can even sell it for them into secondary markets and raise funds to help them achieve other initiatives they may have within the organization. So we've already started to do that a little bit within the United Way right now. So what will be coming out here soon, you'll see come your way is a one pager, just kind of a quick excerpt as far as what the program is about, how you can get involved to help. So we would encourage you to take a look at those when those come your way and see if you can get involved with your company's IT department, see if we can make a move on that. But listen, I think, being part of this group and seeing all the great people involved and all the resources and the talent here, I'm very excited. I think this will be a great initiative for us. And I think we'll have a couple other great ones lined up right behind it once we crush this one. So thank you all for your time, energy, and joining today. I look forward to hopefully meeting again in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Todd. I'm so excited to have you involved and love your passion. And as Todd said, it's already made a huge difference in terms of what we've been able to do together with helping in our South County project. He's been providing us refurbished laptops for families that have gone through 12 weeks of financial coaching and learned for the first time how to create a budget, how to stick to a budget, working on fixing their credit, getting out of debt. And really hard to do all those things on your phone. And because of Todd and Ingram Micro, we've been able to loan those families at the very beginning a laptop of their very own to use. And at the end, if they've gone through everything, they've been able to keep it. And the emotional aspect of that, how excited they are and what a difference it makes in their life, it's unbelievable. It's tear-jerking, things that we take for granted. So for the companies listening out there, more information will come on how you can work with us in this kind of new network that we're creating to repurpose and bring life to technology. I want to do a huge shout out today to CLA, the CEO Leadership Alliance, Orange County. They helped us in the planning of the session and particularly around the panel that you're going to hear in a moment. This amazing group of leaders in the community really come together to tackle some of the biggest issues, and we're so proud to partner with them. So again, thank you, CLA. And I think without further ado, I hope you'll enjoy the panel. I know we're going to all learn a lot together, and I'll be back at the end. But now I'm going to turn it over to none other than our Executive Director of United for Financial Security, the one, the only, Brynell Toomer-Bias. Brynell, take it away.
Thank you so much, Sue, and thank you, Todd, for sharing your personal reflections for the past year given the pandemic. And the tremendous impact it's had on company life and our community as a whole. It was also so great to hear your visioning for moving the county forward and supporting families who truly are most vulnerable when it comes to workforce development. So I am so excited to now transition our discussion and introduce our esteemed panel of experts who are all great colleagues I appreciate having the opportunity to work with to really unpack the focus of today's discussion even further. Navigating and reimagining workforce development in the new normal. So first up, I'm so excited to introduce Jesse Benron, who is the Vice President of Workforce and Economic Development for the Orange County Business Council. And next we have Karma Lacey, who is the Executive Director of the Orange County Workforce Development Board and the Director for Workforce and Economic Development for Orange County. Followed by that, we have Patty Murphy, who is the Director of Human Resources for CISO Share. And last, but certainly not least, we have Jasmine Pachnanda, who is the Senior Vice President for Artificial Intelligence of the SoCal Initiative for the CEO Leadership Alliance of Orange County. So welcome, welcome, welcome again to our esteemed panel of experts. And as we like to say, we're going to dive right in to unpack this topic and get to our questions. And Karma, I'm going to start with you. So we've heard already from Sue and Todd, and we know, because we all have gone through this time together, that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused OC families to face a unique set of challenges. From your vantage point, what has been the impact on vulnerable families in particular as it relates to workforce development?
That's a great question, Brynell. I think what this pandemic, as a result of this pandemic, a lot of families were forced to figure out childcare. They were put in a position that they no longer had steady childcare to take care of their kids while they went to work. In addition to that, they'd lost their jobs, or they were laid off or furloughed for quite some time. So they then lost their sense of security with financial security with taking care of their families. On top of that, they had health and safety concerns. So you have this snowball of different impacts and different outcomes that create trauma for the vulnerable population in Orange County. So as a result, what you'll find is a lot of the vulnerable populations, as we reopen, aren't quite ready to go back to work. They're still trying to navigate how to take care of their families, how to have a livable wage. They're looking into opportunities for entrepreneurship, because that could be a solution to some of the challenges that they had post-pandemic or pre-pandemic, excuse me. And then they're looking for remote employment. So where that wasn't necessarily an option in the past, they've learned that this is an option now since the pandemic. So there's a lot of different variables that they're navigating through right now, accessing training, navigating resources, and honestly, just trying to stay afloat and take care of their families and just understand where we are and where we need to go. So getting through that is been a challenge for the vulnerable population. And we're seeing a lot of that as they enter into our workforce centers, seeking help, trying to understand, what do I do next? How do I navigate this? How do I meet my basic needs and my family basic needs while trying to return back to work?
Yes, so captured so well, this ripple effect, the snowball effect, so many things that families are trying to juggle right now. I wanted to give the other panelists, if anyone else wanted to weigh in as what they've seen as this relates to the last year, the pandemic, affecting vulnerable families. I'll give the rest of the panelists a chance to also now chime in.
I would just add that kind of with our vulnerable families, again, they were already in a condition that we would say is intolerable, and then the pandemic made it even worse. So there's this major slide back. And then for us to kind of gather together as leaders, we have to kind of acknowledge that and recognize that. And not only, again, to kind of catch them up to the point till they were pre-pandemic, again, wasn't tolerable, but to accelerate them forward. So I think it was just even more unfair and more inequitable. The people that were kind of suffering the most suffered even further. And we have to do more than our fair share to kind of get them to where they should be to become in Orange County.
Excellent. Well, we'll keep moving on. And Jesse, we're going to now shift to you and talk about the demand for skills that the pandemic has also produced. So how would you say the pandemic has changed the demand for skills, and where would you say this is seen or felt the most?
Yeah, I would say there's kind of two ways. There's like maybe the skills directly, and then broadly the conversation about skills. And I mean, for both, it's simply just as accelerated it. For one, I think across the board, digital fluency is going to be important. And I think, it's very normal for people to just kind of presume that, every other employer and every other employee kind of has the skill set that they do. But that's just not the case. I mean, we have Ingram Micro here, so a very sophisticated company, but there's 125,000 businesses in Orange County who may not have been using, cloud, may not even been using email, right? It could be shocking, but that's the case. And so that digital fluency, or even if you're kind of working, we unfortunately saw like maybe lower skill work, there wasn't as much tech being used, but now you kind of have to, right? Because the interface is different. So from top to bottom, the need for digital fluency is needed. And again, a lot of us, we're comfortable with that. Myself being a digital native, and younger generations, again, older generations are those who are far more sophisticated than myself, but that kind of can become more comfortable. But if you've been doing a job for 25 years and hasn't changed much, that's a huge shock. And so they have to kind of adjust to that. From a direct skill standpoint, of course, I think the acceleration of, the need for cybersecurity and, skills around data analytics. Healthcare is always a major industry in Orange County. It's always going to continue to grow. We shouldn't accept this as fate, but Orange County is expected to just become older. So of course, the demand for healthcare, so kind of people entering in those fields, that'll be critically important. As far as skills broadly, again, same thing. I think it's accelerated it mainly because I think people kind of associate skills with hard skills. And of course, those are important, right? You need people who can be a pipe fitter or Python. However, there's a major conversation around soft skills. I dislike the word, but that's kind of what it's called. And so there's that recognition of that as well. So I'd say both those, it's really not going away, as if we just need more people with better hard skills and not so much soft skills, because employers are saying, the latter just as much. So this is where, again, I don't think the dynamic change, I think it's accelerated. And for those who don't know, again, soft skills, kind of communication and resilience, working in teams. And so those things, of course, I think, especially the teamwork component is a skill that's probably going to be even more critical as, other panelists talk about kind of the nature of working remotely and not being kind of face-to-face. So I think that's what I'd say from a more specific skill set to the broader skill set, in short, kind of just the acceleration of a lot of these things.
Yeah, no, I think we are all nodding as we've experienced everything that you just referenced. I love the digital fluency and kind of just knowing how this impacts different generations, industries, really calling out specifically those industries to cybersecurity, healthcare, and where the demand is lying. As before, want to give other panelists the opportunity if you have anything else to add around the shift in demand for skills that you may be seeing before we move on.
I just want to add, this is a conversation we were having before the pandemic, is getting people in the mindset of constant learning. So I think that in the past, we went to college, you got a degree, and that's all you needed. But what we've learned over the years is that there's more. The employers need more than you to just get that first degree and that be the only skill that you bring to the table. We need to constantly be in a learning environment and a learning mode. So I think more than ever, I think we as a workforce system see that there's a need for constant learning and constant development of not just of our students exiting college, but for the individuals that are experts in their career and experts in their field. I think that more now than ever, we have to push the message of lifelong learning and lifelong development to be the answer to what business needs. So if there's ever a skill that, or a time that skill or that need needs to be reinforced in this community, it is lifelong learning.
Yes. Well said, and thanks for adding that, Karma. This hunger and desire, I think, both as employees and companies to create a foster a culture of learning and creating those opportunities to meet that. So we are definitely in this new space, this new world of work. And Jasmine, we're gonna hear from you now, really your point of view on, in this new space, this new world of work, what are some of the strengths and what are some of the challenges we're facing?
Yeah, great. So I just wanted to also add a little bit to what Jesse and Karma were talking about, in the sense that, so for CLA OC, our vision is a thriving OC for all. And the way that we want to get there is by supporting the development of an inclusive tech talent pipeline, because those are the jobs that are in demand, as Jesse said, and those are the jobs that can also provide the wages that we're all talking about here, where families can support themselves. And so, we did do a study recently where we had McKinsey come in and do an assessment of what does the tech pipeline look like in Orange County and what are the tech jobs that are out there. And so a couple of interesting facts that came out of that is that over the next 4 years, there are going to be 20,000 technology jobs that are going to be available in Orange County. And we need to make sure that we have the pipeline ready to take all of those jobs right here locally. Otherwise, we're going to be importing talent, which we're already doing. And those top jobs are going to require skills like Jesse said, the hard skills. So data storage, operations, networking, software development, and cybersecurity are really the top 4 kind of areas that are going to be in the biggest need. So I think there's huge opportunity, because so many of us are involved here, to start targeting the skill development, whether it's high school students, community college students, or universities, and say like, hey, here are all the skills. Let's start making sure that we are preparing those who are here to enter the workforce with those skills, because we know that's what's in need. I think in terms of opportunities, I do think that there is also a huge opportunity for all of us who hire and run businesses and organizations in Orange County to rethink a little bit, how are we assessing talent and what are the qualifications that are required to even get an interview? So again, in our study, we saw that 96% of these technology jobs require a bachelor's degree. And right there, that is going to be such a barrier, particularly when we think about the families and the communities in Orange County that we want to make sure have access to these kinds of jobs. So I think there's really an opportunity here to start to think about how do we pair experiential opportunities with various credentials that that are shorter than a 4-year university experience, and prepare them and prepare students and adults to be eligible for jobs. But it's going to take both sides. We got to make sure that we've got the right credentials and experiences, but we've also got to make sure that organizations are willing to think about this bachelor degree requirement in a different way.
No, absolutely. I loved how you shared about targeting different populations and rethinking how we're training and approaching, rethinking our hiring practices. I think the name of the game we like to say internally is pivoting, learning to pivot and being attuned and letting data inform how you do that. So that's excellent. Anyone else want to weigh in on strengths and challenges in this new world of work and kind of rethinking this new world of work?
I would just add to what Jasmine said in regards to that bachelor's degree component and employers that are so focused on that. And yes, that's really important. And as a HR director and a hiring manager, I definitely realize the importance of that. But I think also, as you mentioned, we have to think about other ways to train people into these careers, as there's so many openings. My company is cybersecurity. There's more jobs than we have people to fill those jobs. So thinking about that pipeline, and I know one thing that we've done around a solution is, create a training program so that we are building our own internal pipeline, not only for CISO share, but for our business partners who need on-site cybersecurity people. So thinking about training those people, and our training program doesn't require, has no requirement other than to be excited and interested and want to work hard, and we'll train you up into these skills. So I think just kind of being open to different ways of training and different ways of hiring is really important right now as we move forward. It's always has been, but even more so now.
Absolutely. Openness, willingness to pivot, change, be innovative in this time. Really, really great, Patty. We're going to stay with you, Patty, as our HR expert on the panel. We have been talking about this. We're all going through this, the prominence of remote work right now. From your vantage point, how has this influenced business performance? And how sustainable do you think this is going to be, remote or hybrid in the long run?
Yes, I'm dealing with this on the daily, obviously, as everyone is. I think it's very sustainable. Prior to the pandemic at CISO Share, we had a hybrid model that was very successful for us. And I think moving 100% remote and seeing how that's affected our employees' work-life balance and also affected our ability to be able to train people remotely. As I mentioned in our training that we do, now our training's open to even more people, people that may be moms and dads that need to stay home with their children right now, but they're still able to jump on a virtual training with us. So I think that the remote piece is really important. However, I don't think we can overlook the importance of the face-to-face. I know I miss it a lot. And as an HR director, it's so important for our culture and for the development and training of our employees to have that face-to-face. There are definitely challenges that we're still trying to figure out around how do we support employees when they're remote? How do we make sure they're okay? How do we make sure they have what they need? How do we train them? How do we develop them? All those are still issues that we're working through. For as many benefits as there are to being remote, there are definitely the downsides to that as well. And I see that also. And just trying to connect with everyone on the daily and make sure they're okay. You can't just see them in the hallway and say hi and give them a smile. Now you have to really make an effort to reach out, make that phone call or schedule that Zoom meeting. So I think that there's definitely issues that we need to work around, but I do see it as a sustainable model. And I think that the employees I'm talking to, the candidates I'm talking to, they're really demanding it. They're really wanting it. They like the balance that they've been able to have, and they want to be able to continue to have that. So I think employers just need to figure out how do we do that so that it works for the business and for the employee.
Yeah. Very, very so true, and well captured around this opportunity for technology, obviously, to drive our work and working in the remote space, but also not losing the opportunity to stay connected, build team, build culture through those one-on-one interactions that don't necessarily come across the same via Zoom or what have you. So thank you for sharing that. Any other comments in relation to the prominence of remote work right now, sustainability in the future?
I would say, I completely agree with Patty. So Orange County Business Council kind of had a workforce development conference where this was discussed. And so I think from a strength standpoint, of course, like the flexibility, and I would think long-term, you're going to see far better retention from employers with their employees. I think right now, of course, there's some fickleness amongst current employees because there's such a demand for them, right? They kind of really have the bargaining power. So maybe not currently, but when somewhat of an equilibrium occurs, I think you're going to see like that being a real benefit, I guess, included as far as the benefits package, your total benefits package. That's definitely going to be an option. One of the biggest concerns, though, is definitely how do you keep company culture, which was brought up. And so, of course, if people were working for you prior to the pandemic, they could easily carry that over. But for every new employee from 18 months ago to today, how does that get infused into kind of what they do? And I think that's going to be the real challenge that companies are going to have to grapple with. It's just to add on to Patty. So I think overall, yes, I think it's sustainable. I think it's ultimately going to be a very good thing. That's probably the one thing that businesses really need to start thinking about to ensure that they can kind of have their cake and eat it too in this scenario.
Love that. Yes, absolutely. We can't, underscore enough that a lot of companies are bringing on new staff, have brought on new staff, and how did they get indoctrinated and connected within the culture of the company and truly be a part of the team. Excellent. So as we move forward, Jessica, we're going to stay with you and talk more about skills, but this time shifting a bit around the skills gap. And so we know there's a national skills gap. We've talked about that for quite some time. OCBC did a great study with JP Morgan some years ago, which actually was part of our foundation for developing Upskill OC. And so as we're talking now in the pandemic, the national skills gap continues. It affects Orange County. How do you see Orange County businesses starting to develop, attract, and retain, and really this focus of an equitable and competent workforce?
Yeah, and I would just like to emphasize a national skills gap. I've had this conversation with Jasmine and Karma. We somewhat commiserate on it, that it'd be great if someone else had this model and we just like bring it to Orange County and our job is done. Everyone is struggling with this, like my peers with other business groups, whether Southern California, there's like an association of chambers, they all talk about this. So again, as much as we're going to continue to work to solve the problem, but know that again, no one has a solution. So we are all trying to figure it out together. And I think that's just a phenomenal question. I think it's so loaded, and probably you could even have potentially an entire webinar just on that question. But I think first and foremost, it definitely takes the commitment of the business community. And again, like that's easier said than done, because I said there's 125,000 businesses. How do you really get the word out to everybody to make these commitments? As was mentioned before, there are just so many more creative ways to kind of recruit talent. And especially when you want to talk about, equity and some of the diversity, whatever you were doing, you somehow think it's going to get you a different result. It's not going to. So you have to start becoming more creative. Whatever institutions that you were trying to recruit from, or however you did it, referral process, which is great in some respects, but also can kind of perpetuate, right, kind of the lack of diversity. So I think that's one thing that has to be critical. And I think everyone on this call is trying to do. But we have to just kind of stay at it, right? So it cannot happen as far as developing skills without the commitment of the business community. I think what's great about Orange County, what can be done is at least, people don't know this, but like the US Census Bureau has a diversity index, and Orange County is the most diverse county in Southern California, right? That might shock people who are from Orange County because there's, maybe a lot of ethnic segregation, economic segregation, but particularly if you're not from here, that's probably blows your mind. So as far as like diversity and equity, like it could happen here. You can recruit your own and make that. It's now a question of competence, which is again what Jasmine and Patty and Karma like work on the daily. And that's where it's going to be a rub for a business, right? Because you want to recruit the best talent. That's like the system we have. And as much as we want that to be Orange County, that may not be the case. Orange County is a big place where you can find your talent, but there's a whole world out there now because of COVID to where you could potentially find that talent. So that might complicate things from kind of an equity standpoint or diversity standpoint. So I think, again, although ultimately I'm optimistic because I think there is a real commitment from the business community on these things. Like they are genuinely and earnestly talking about it. It may take some time, to see results, but, some companies were talking about it, again, the tragic murder of George Floyd. This is long overdue. It should not have taken that for this to happen. But I really say there's a lot of clamor to do this. And so with that acknowledgement and recognition, I'm confident that the businesses will then do the right things and get those things accomplished.
Well, I think you just beautifully highlighted just the prime opportunity Orange County is poised, the commitment being there. How do we accelerate that? And it is going to take our collective work together to get this done. So thank you for that. Anyone else want to weigh in? As Jesse mentioned, this is an ongoing discussion within the county, especially those of us that are in workforce development around this national skills gap. How does this affect us? What do we need to consider?
I mean, I just add, Jesse, I'm so glad you brought up the diversity index that I know you guys published in a report recently, because it is a shock to others. I recently just moved here from LA. I'm an Orange County native, but lived in LA for the last 20 years. And when I give them and my friends and former colleagues the stats of what it means to be in Orange County and kind of the diversity of, over 50% is actually non-white. And there is so much beautiful diversity, racially, gender, ethnically, and people are shocked. And it just goes to show that we do have the opportunity here to make this such an amazing place that people want to be. And there is a little bit of rebranding and branding that we have to continue to do in highlighting the amazing aspects of Orange County. Because what often hits the news in the larger papers is not about that. And so I think that's, a great opportunity for all of us to connect on that and figure out how do we start to make sure that the true brand of Orange County is wonderful and the beautiful place that it is.
I love that. The branding and rebranding, and something we talk about all the time at United. How well are we telling our story? So as a community, and having platforms like this where we are really talking about best practices and then moving forward on them. So that's great. And Jasmine, going to stick with you as we continue our discussion and really now start to unpack kind of this, what we've been getting to around competency-based frameworks. So as we know, there's been a shift from degrees, as we talked about, to competencies now and skills, and how that should be something employers are more engaging around. What skills and competency-based frameworks can businesses take to retain, retrain, and promote employees? As we know, the demand for particular skills is going to continue to rise. And similarly, how can businesses apply both a skill and competency-based framework during the actual hiring process? So I know that's a lot to unpack, but I know you'll do great.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think as we mentioned, the kind of top 4 skills that are out there, within each of those, we are happy, we can share, there's lots of competency frameworks out there around different technology skills. And I think what's actually most important is for companies to decide, right, like what is most important to them and which of those frameworks are relevant to their jobs and to who they're hiring. And from there, like they're very similar across, there's OneNet, there's, in the East Coast, the Greater Washington Partnership developed, which is a very similar organization to CLA. They developed their own kind of competency framework, and AWS has their own framework, right? Like every single credentialing opportunity or training opportunity has their own framework. And what's most important is just that a company or an organization decides what is the framework they want to use. And I think in terms of actually hiring against that framework, some of the conversation that we already had around thinking through, how do you post your jobs? Like, where are you posting them? What are the requirements that you're putting on there? Because again, just putting bachelor's degree required may actually filter out. It is a good filter. I absolutely agree. It can be a good filter, but in being creative, thinking through what is the skill equivalent that we're trying to get to that we think a bachelor's degree means. Like there's something underneath that. It's not just a piece of paper. And I think also thinking through like what are the different interview practices. So for example, we just talked to someone in Texas from Infosys, and he was saying that they've tried actually working with hiring managers and not showing them what the educational background is and going purely based on the conversation and the skills that they have to show. So I think there's lots of different ways. It's definitely a big lift for HR. So I get that. And I know that it's a lot to try to take on, but I think there's real opportunity here to, try 1 or 2 things in each kind of hiring cycle and see what works before obviously changing the whole thing. But we've also seen with Medtronic, who is one of their kind of key divisions is located here in Orange County. They are also trying to pilot opportunities for certain job classes where they are removing the educational requirements and going purely based on skill and seeing how that expand. So I'd love to see something like that also happen here in Orange County, where we're trying these different approaches.
Yeah. No, I think I love how you frame the opportunity to pilot and kind of identify with the host of frameworks that exist, identifying what works for your company. Start small, pilot it, see if it works before you scale up, and also reconsider how you're actually outreaching to candidates. Also really, really great. Anyone else want to weigh in around competency-based frameworks? I think you hit it all, Jasmine. Well, Patty, we're going to move over to you. And as we kind of continue on and think about the future of the workplace, what are some discussions you're having internally? What is, HR, really thinking about for envisioning the future of the workplace? Do you foresee that we talked about remote work is going to kind of be the thing, hybrid? And how is that going to affect really what we've just talked about as well, hiring, development, and promotion strategies?
Yeah, as we said, I think that remote work is definitely part of our new normal, and that's what candidates are wanting. It's interesting when I'm interviewing people, I'm even hearing they're willing to take lower compensation if the position is remote. So these are new things conversations I've not had before, and it's really interesting. That's one of their very first questions to me is, can this position be remote? And then on the other side, I think because candidates have so many choices now, that we really need to think as a business, what sets us apart? Why does this person want to work for CISO Share versus someplace else? So as an HR professional, I've really had to look at our benefits package, and Jesse kind of touched on that as well, as this remote being part of the benefits package now. And all the other things that we offer, and how does that set us apart? And why do people want to work for us? And one piece that I know has been important for us is our culture of teaching and learning. And every level of candidate that I talk to gets excited when I talk about our teaching and learning component of our business. That's not just in our training program called Cyber Forward, but it's in our day-to-day with each of our employees and how we work with them. Now, yes, as we mentioned before, that teaching and learning is definitely a little more complicated remotely. But I think this is an example of how I think businesses need to focus on what sets them apart and why would candidates want to work with them when they can work anywhere.
Absolutely. It's now not just like it's the give and get. And that's really being reshaped right now during this time. So anyone else want to share around future of the workplace insights, what you're hearing, seeing, experiencing? All right, we'll keep moving, and we cannot have this conversation without talking about public policy and the important role that that plays in this discussion. So Karma, we're going to shift to you, and the question is, what policies, whether it's local, state, federal, affects Orange County businesses the most and why? And if you had a magic wand, what policy changes would you like to see to develop an equitable workforce that reaches our most vulnerable families?
Brynell, that's a very complicated question. Very complicated. So we'll talk about before the pandemic. Businesses were already challenged in Orange County with navigating tax code and environmental laws and employment and labor laws, and that didn't change. And so with this pandemic, you add on not only those issues, but then you'll add on the cost of real estate and some of those other factors that were causing businesses to rethink staying in Orange County. Now you've thrown the pandemic on top of all of that and navigating, do I open, do I not open? Do I allow my employees to work from home? Am I required to get everyone vaccinated in my office? There's so many challenges that businesses face right now. And let's be honest, the point of a business being open is to generate a profit, right? So at the end of the day, that company is in business to create profit. And so couple all of these challenges on top of a pandemic, and then on top of a confused workforce that's not ready to go back, you have a again, another snowball, right? I don't know that there's one regulation that could change how companies look at diversity and inclusion and equitable pay and gender equality, all those things that employers need and their employees need to feel comfortable and safe for and work for that employer. I don't know if there's one policy that could correct all of that. And I don't know if it's a policy or a law that's necessary to do that. I think that sometimes it's education. It's educating the employer on the benefits of having a diverse workforce, educating them on the benefits of investing in their employees instead of firing and rehiring. How about we invest in them, train them so that they can stay in the organization? Teaching them the power of loyalty, of employee loyalty. I think that those are factors that are super important, but I don't know that a law would fix that, right? So again, this is a very complicated question because I don't think that it's necessarily another law, but more of education. One of the things that we're seeing for Orange County is we created an HR hotline to help employers navigate reopening. And this hotline is free of charge. You can ask whatever question you want in terms of employment law. And a lot of the questions we're getting are pretty much the same as, I don't know how to open back up. Do I have to social distance my employees? Can I be sued if I require a vaccination? These are things that aren't necessarily a regulation. It's not going to fix it. It's more of education and information. So maybe if there was a regulation to encourage free education for employers, then maybe that would be a better solution than creating yet another law. So Brenda, I'm sorry, I don't have a perfect answer for this question, but I can tell you that it's going to take education and providing information and really evaluating the purpose of a business being in business and how do I help you stay in business, but also help you help your employees.
No, I appreciate that feedback. I know we all do, the audience does, in terms of taking a step back, talking about education first, talking about making sure people know what resources that exist. I hope this was not new news to everyone about the resource hotline that you have, but it may be. So just how do we as communities get the word out about what already exists in terms of driving work forward and public policy as well. Any other insights around the role of public policy as it relates to businesses and reaching vulnerable families?
Brenda, yeah, I'll add something briefly. I would say, I mean, it's another one of those questions where you could have the entire webinar, right, based on that question. And so, I mean, at OCBC, you know, we have a whole government affairs team that has to kind of manage everything happening in Sacramento, because that's how important kind of like policy is kind of impacting the business community. And like, you know, just so people know, like the governor recently just signed all the legislation that he was going to sign for this given year, and it was over 700 bills. Now, not everything impacts, you know, the economy and the businesses and the workforce directly, but that's just the number of bills with, you know, the regulations are soon to come that are generally, you know, much more than just the one piece of legislation. As Karma brought up, you know, if you look at the California Labor Code, like that document is, I think, over 800 pages, probably over 900 pages. So for, again, back to where larger companies might have to, they will definitely deploy the resources to make sure they're in compliance. But again, to the 125,000 businesses in Orange County, it's hard for someone even of a staff of 50 to try to kind of manage all those things, right? And so that's where, again, I think what we love about being in California is that we are here to kind of respect all residents. So I'm not saying that California should be a race to the bottom as far as, you know, kind of labor code and anything else, but we have to kind of understand and kind of strike that balance. I would say maybe from a very small ball, but I think from a policy perspective, you know, some sort of incentive on the internship side is something that I think, you know, OCBC is kind of thinking about and working with our partners. You know, there is like a new opportunity kind of tax credit or work opportunity tax credit. Carmen, you might know it better than myself, but essentially like it incentivizes employers to kind of hire from certain populations. However, you know, like from an employer standpoint, we would recommend that starts earlier, because then when that person, you know, is after, maybe doesn't even go to college or after college, they, because of their circumstances, you know, had to take the fast food job instead of getting the white collar internship, right? Just because like they had to get paid and the hours were better or whatnot. So if you can incentivize the employer to do those internships with those populations earlier, then it's less of a, you know, altruistic or benevolent act from the business, because now that person will be more capable when they actually apply for that full-time job. So again, a small thing, it won't change the world, but I think it could address some of the inequities by allowing someone greater opportunity earlier, so they are on paper and meritocratically should be considered one of the better candidates when the time comes.
I think that's great. Really, that balance.
Hey, Jesse, Brynjel, I have to chime in here because Jesse, you were speaking my language with the incentives for internships. The part of our training program is an internship. And one of our biggest challenges is finding businesses that are willing to participate in that internship. And it is so valuable for those people to have that opportunity, to get that training, to be able to put that internship on their resume. So I love that idea.
No, as well, we were all yes, incentives, education, that is really going to drive that forward for sure. And we are now at our portion of the program where we'll see if there's any Q&A from the audience. Make sure that we captured those questions as well. Give me 1 second to pull those up. So we have a question from the audience that I'll just pose to the panel. How is your organization leveraging existing resources in the Orange County workforce development ecosystem to address any of the issues in the labor market?
I'll take a stab at that. I think that there's not one answer. So what we're doing for the Orange County Workforce Development Board and the County of Orange is really going out, collaborating with community partners, addressing what their needs are, evaluating what resources are available from the collective, and then implementing programs to support Orange County. So on one end, we'll have programs that support businesses. So like both of my co-panelists talked about is incentivizing employers to hire. So the Orange County Workforce Development Board offers an OJT program, on the job training program, where employers can participate in the training of their future staff and receive an incentive for doing so. So up to about 90% for small businesses, reimbursement for that training period, right? And when I say 90% reimbursement of the wages paid during that training period. So that's one incentive that we're working together for the community to solve a problem. Then you have where, and businesses haven't figured out how to open back up or how to market that they're open. So going out to organizations like the Entertainment Book and teaching small businesses how to use that free resource to bring people to their organization. And then for job seekers, developing programs that help them with upskilling and retraining so that they can get to a livable wage. So creating career pathways. So there's not one answer and one method that we're utilizing. We're basically wherever we're disseminating resources everywhere so that we can address this problem and help the Orange County economy recover.
That's great. Anyone else want to weigh in on how your organization is leveraging existing resources?
Sure. I mean, I can share for CLA OC, we really see ourselves as the connector between businesses and education institutions. So I think we all agree that the education aspect of it is really important. And in some of our partnerships, we've actually worked with like CISO Share in how do we help them get more students and others into their programs by just simply making people aware and our other member companies aware that this opportunity exists. Everyone needs cybersecurity. Started getting some to go through CISO Shares programming, and then that now people know that that's like a credible, qualified educational opportunity that they can then start hiring from. We've also partnered with high schools and with community colleges, again, to connect, starting with the business. We always start with the business side of like, what is the need that's out there and how do we connect it to different education institutions, whether it's this summer, for example, we had over 200 students go through career exploration experiences. So we were able to recruit businesses who want to put that effort and were able to put that energy into training really, really young people, high school students and community college folks. So, you know, it's really linking the two sides between business and education.
Yeah, I love what you and Karma is elevating what you're already doing and making sure people are aware. And I think the role we all are playing now, being connectors and collaborating, we can't underscore enough the importance of public and private partnerships, especially in this space. And it's so unfortunate our time is coming to an end, but I want to give everyone a last chance to weigh in as we close out on hopes and aspirations for an inclusive recovery. So we'll go rapid fire, kind of your final thoughts, particularly maybe this can be targeted at job seekers that feel like they're at the end of the line. You heard the story that Sue shared initially about the job seeker, that it took quite some time for them to land a job, and employers that are struggling right now as well. So what are your final nuggets of wisdom for hopes and aspirations for our inclusive recovery? So Jesse, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably speak to the business community, and that is, truly think about what merit means, right? As again, back to, if you look at people's resumes or profiles, it may not be the exact match, but that was because of circumstances around their life. And so I think if you really want, searching for the best candidate will take some effort. I think businesses want less friction when they're trying to hire people. There is some convenience there, but I think there are people who are best for the job. May not be the case on paper. So you really got to be creative in your sourcing and dig deep. And that is how I think you get a much more diverse and equitable economy.
That's great. And Karma, last words of wisdom.
I'm going to take a shameless plug. So I'm going to encourage that both businesses, job seekers, community-based organizations, basically connect with us. I think that we have a lot of great programs that are out there that just people don't know about for both the business and for job seekers that allow us to be your resource, allow us to help you save those jobs. So before you get ready to lay off, give us a call. Let us talk through what can we do as a workforce development board to support your organization. For those job seekers that cannot find that next employment opportunity or not sure what to do next, utilize our workforce system to help you navigate what's available to you. I'm shamelessly going to plug, check out our one-stop system. Connect with the county. We do have a lot of resources. We are here for you. Together, we are going to get through this. Just you can utilize us, use our resources.
Awesome. Thanks, Karma. And Patty, your last words.
I would just say that my hopes and aspirations are just to see more success stories like I've seen through Upskill and through our Cyber Forward program, and the story that Sue told at the beginning of the program, just to continue to see those kinds of things and make the difference in people's lives that way. I think often we underestimate our influence on people, what we can do just in our small business or in our small community to really make a difference in someone's life. And just, you never know what conversation you could be having with someone that might, excite something in them that's going to make a difference. So I just look towards those kinds of things as we move forward.
That's great, Patty. And Jasmine, what are your last words?
So I'll echo everything everyone said, that there's resources out there. There's opportunities for all of us to be creative in how we address this. But really, I just believe this COVID, the pandemic, all of the kind of increased focus on diversity and inclusion because of some really unfortunate situations. And we actually are at this tipping point, and it's like this once in a lifetime opportunity to make a difference. All of the factors are coming together that I would love. My hope is that Orange County is going to be an example of how we can come out of this better and stronger for all of our residents.
So well said, all of you. I so appreciate all of the great insights. We'll have to have a part 2 and part 3 for sure to continue to unpack this information. But I definitely want to thank you all for being such great panelists. I'm going to turn the floor back over to Sue to close us out, but we do thank the audience as well. Hope there were so much takeaways from this discussion, and we are recording the session, so you'll be able to access and share it with your networks. So Sue, the floor is yours.
Oh, well, thank you, Brunel, and thank you, amazing panelists. That was just wonderful, wonderful information, so much resources. And I think about 20,000 technology jobs, Jasmine, that you brought up. I think about the amazing services that you provide, Karma, that we all need to publicize more. Jesse, you're such a great partner in terms of everything and the thought leader in terms of what we need to do together. And Patty, just a great partner overall. And I think about people that have gone through from rapid rehousing into your training program and now working at 6-figure jobs, right? I mean, it's awesome. And there's so much innovation in this room. I think Orange County has the will to succeed. I just want to thank all of you. I want to thank Brynjel for her leadership of the panel and all she's doing. And Todd, thank you for being our new chair. We're going to follow up, and we're at time. I don't want to belabor this, but I just want to say we're all in it together, and please reach out to Orange County United Way as well. We have lots of programs to get you engaged, and I can help clarify anything from the digital divide to the upskill program to how do you connect with these amazing panelists. So thank you all. Have a great day.